Welcome to the BEASTwriter Family, where social media engagement is encouraged. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we have the honor and privilege of meeting with my man, Larry Krueger. You guys know who he is from KNBR, also on ESPN Radio. Larry, how you doing today? Mahalo, and thank you for joining us on this Taco Tuesday.
Hey, man, always great to be here. We go way back, so, and you gave me the shout out, said you want to talk little Niners. Let's do it.
Let's talk Niners. I like it. And, the whole thing with the whole San Francisco 49ers and the state of the franchise is I like talking to people who are not only analysts or insiders or reporters. I like talking to people who actually do a couple different things. You started your grind, right, as an Arizona Cardinals scout, and then you kind of broke into the NFL media side. Tell us about that, and how did that transpire, and how did you even become a scout in the first place with the Arizona Cardinals?
You know what? I'll try to give you the brief version. I was going to Sac State, and I was just like any other kid, drinking beer and going to classes and chasing co-eds, and that was basically it. And a guy who's in my fraternity said, "Hey, you want to come watch some football with me at my house?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So he lived out in Carmichael. We went out to his house and we're watching football, and then his dad was like, "Hey, you sound like you know football," and his dad happened to be the head coach for Sac State football. So his dad was like, "Hey, I'm leaving Sac State football at the end of the year, and I'm headed to the Canadian Football League." And he's like, "You think the game on a high level? Would you be interested in joining me?" And I'm like, "Wow, are you kidding me?" And I was graduating and I wasn't really sure what to do. But he's like, "Yeah, I can get you an interview with Kay Stevenson, the head coach, as their quality control coach. It's not going to pay a lot, but it's a football beginning if you're interested." And I just talked to my dad, and my dad was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, do it. Don't because I had some other jobs lined up, like real jobs." And he's like, "You can always do a real job. Do this, chase it down." So I did that, and this is the 1993-94 season, and the entire staff was made up of NFL people. And at the end of the year, the team relocated to San Antonio, but several of the coaches went to the NFL, and one went to the Raiders, and another guy went to be the GM of the Arizona Cardinals, and his name was Joe Woolley. And then Joe was like, "Hey, if you want to come with me, you can do some West Coast scouting." This is at the beginning of free agency. And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." And so I was based here in the Bay Area. And then I just scouted for the Cardinals, 94, 95, 96, and really enjoyed it. But, it was, and I I learned a lot from guys like Bill Urbanek and Rick Mueller, who's Randy Mueller's brother, who was a football personnel guy. I learned a lot from Joe Woolley, from Kay Stevenson, from Bob Mattos. And then I just, Keith Kidd with the Cardinals was my boss there. And this was at the beginning of free agency. So they needed to have a scouting report on the guys that would get cut in camp. So I went to all those preseason games and wrote reports and basically I loved it, but I could see that it was going to be a very long path. And it was going to be very isolated. Like, you're on the road, you're by yourself a lot. And it's like my first, dream was to have like a family, to have like kids and a wife. And so I wanted to make sure that I got my first dream before I got my second dream. And then, so I was still doing the scouting. And I was just looking for a part-time job, and I kind of fell into an affiliate relations job at Sports Byline USA, which led to an on-air gig. And then once I saw how easy the on-air gig was and the hours, and I was like, you know what, this is easy. I can do this. And then it kind of went from there. And after a year or two, I realized it was a little bit of a conflict of interest to do both. So I just moved on from the Cardinals and pursued the radio thing. But really, it's like, I almost feel like I chose what I'm second best at in life, because I really feel like I'm a better football evaluator than a talk show host. But such is life. I've had a good family, good life. I've got 4 beautiful kids. I got 2 in college. I got 1 in high school. I got a 12-year-old, and I've been able to see their life and be in their life. And And so I wouldn't trade any decision that I've made, but I definitely feel like I would like to get back into football personnel at some juncture on a more official basis.
Yeah, it's funny. See, everything comes full circle here in the BEASTwriter family. Randy Miller was on the show. We were talking scouting, and we were just talking on that level. And I think everyone who is in that position, it's a passion, right? It's a drive. It's kind of like a drug, right? You're addicted to it, right? It's something that's ingrained in you. And if you're really good at what you're doing, someone's going to find you at the end of the day. And again, Connie Carberg, again, tying into what you're just saying. And again, this is why I like getting different perspectives, is because you're hearing it from one person, but you're hearing it from different people on all levels of the organization or all levels of the NFL media. Connie Carberg, who was the first NFL female scout, was on the show, and she talked about it, hit on the nail. And I've been asked this too. The first question that they ask you is, do you have a family? No. Good. You're perfect for the job because you're going to be on the road as an area scout. You're going to be, doing a lot of traveling time. There's not going to be much wiggle room for yourself. So you're really marrying the NFL team. You're not marrying solely one person or, starting a family like you said. It's almost like you have to pick and choose. You can't do both. There's just not enough hours in a day if you're really serious about this job description to go ahead and take that risk and say, you know what, I can do both. Now, there may be one-offs here and there, but come on, it. When you're an area scout or a GM or vice president player personnel, you're the one that's going to have to making these hard decisions. And in order to field this information, you're going to have to be the ones doing all the legwork. There is no guesswork involved when it comes to the NFL Combine. And like Randy Miller said, a lot of the legwork and a lot of the work that is laid out before the NFL draft concludes, right? So when the NFL draft takes place, which is like 2 to 3 days before the board's already been stacked. All the scenarios have basically been played out, and you know which direction you're going to go in. Well, there's countless 9, 10 months out of the year where you're trying to formulating this analysis. And again, you just hit it on the nail. And I like using that term because there's no way around it. It's like you have to pick and choose. You can't do both. It's hard to do, or at the very least, it's hard to do both. But yeah, you'd be a great NFL scout. You would have my vote. And what if Randy Miller and you were back on the same scouting department? That would have been dope. All right. You never know. You never know. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about something now. We're going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers, right? Let's talk about their quarterback situation. Shall we? Let's talk about their quarterback situation. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is the week 1 starter. I think everyone that I spoke to within NFL Network on ESPN here in the BEASTwriter Family Show, they all agree with my analysis that Jimmy Garoppolo is the week 1 starter. Anything else that tailors from that, unless he's traded, which I don't see that happening, he's going to be the week 1 starter. And if that's the case and he is the week 1 starter, what does that leave Trey Lance? Ultimately, my question to you is, how do you see that dynamic playing out in 2021?
Well, okay. I mean, first of all, there's just so many false narratives out there when it comes to the quarterback. If they loved Jimmy, they wouldn't have traded all these picks to move up for Lance. So Jimmy is not. This whole false narrative. That's one false narrative. The other false narrative is that Jimmy's only problem is that Jimmy's been hurt. No, that's not Jimmy's only problem. All right. That's not Jimmy's only problem. And Jimmy has clearly regressed the last couple of years. Now, he doesn't recognize pressure. He sees it when it's not there. He doesn't see it when it is there. And he's been one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the NFL the last couple seasons, and yet he's among the top sacked quarterbacks. So what does that tell you? It tells you that he's either not identifying pressure, where it's coming from, or how to get away from it. So they saw those flaws as well. And then, of course, it ultimately leads to he gets hurt. And then if he's hurt, he's out. And then, you can't play quarterback in the NFL and start 52% of the games. You have to be there. Availability is absolutely key. So they want to win this year. They wanted to take the highest end quarterback. To me, I really think that the 49ers have been impacted by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They saw that if you take the most talented, clay and develop it correctly, you're going to have the best result. So they got the most talented prospect, regardless of where he was in his lineage of development. And they just said, you know what, we're going to commit to giving this guy a full year and develop him correctly. Because here's the thing, when you're a quarterback in the NFL, every quarterback, there's no exceptions. There's a race between when you can learn what you're doing before your body breaks down. Right. And so if you can learn before your body breaks, you've won. If your body breaks before you learn, you've lost. And Rick Meyer is an example of that. And there's others where he got a lot of playing time, but before he could really learn the nuances of the game, he took so many sacks. He was the most sacked quarterback. All of a sudden he's hurt and he never really developed properly. Mahomes' development path, I think the Niners believe, is the best path, which is draft a talented quarterback with a talented offensive coach, get a great veteran quarterback, or at least a serviceable veteran quarterback. Let that guy play. Let the rookie learn. And when he's ready, put him in there. So I think that's the plan. Let Jimmy play. And when Trey shows that he's the better option, go to Trey. Now, when's that going to be? My guess it's probably not going to be until the end of the year or next year. So I think they're probably going to commit to Garoppolo for this year. But you also got to remember this. Garoppolo's making 3 times what a backup NFL quarterback would make. So if Lance does beat him out in camp, or if Jimmy gets hurt again in camp and Lance takes over and plays well, I think it will be very interesting. Now, they say they've budgeted for Jimmy, but they also have Warner's extension looming. They have Bosa's extension looming. They have Debo's extension looming. So they're not really taking advantage of the best attribute of going with a rookie quarterback, and that is getting the $20 million price tag quarterback off your books. They have the rookie quarterback and they have the $20 million a year price tag quarterback. So I'm not saying they're going to cut Jimmy. I really don't believe that. I do think that they would consider trading him. His contract becomes guaranteed week 1. So that's really the cutoff. If he gets to week 1, he's here. But anything could happen this summer. And that's why I was laughing yesterday when one of the guys put out, the big quarterback battle is going to be for the number 3 quarterback position. It's like, who are you fooling? And, Jimmy's got camp and preseason to show what he's got. Otherwise, they're not going to keep a $25 million backup quarterback. If he loses this to Lance, they're going to move him, or they're going to cut him, or they're going to get down the road. That would be my guess. So I think the Niners are going to win here. You know why? Because the presence of Lance is going to motivate Jimmy to do the extra work that he needs to do the mental reps that he needs to go through so that he can maximize his potential. So if I had to predict how it's going to go, Lance's presence is going to motivate Jimmy to have the best year Jimmy can have. I think Jimmy will wind up having a good year. I think they'll probably wind up staying with Jimmy all year, maybe even winning in the playoffs with Jimmy. And I think that they will probably wind up trading Jimmy for a 2nd-round pick next offseason. That would be my guess.
That's a good prediction. It's not a guess, it's a prediction. And it's a good one. This is what I've been saying all along in the BEASTwriter family. I said, you know what? They're hanging on to Jimmy for 1 more year because they need a scapegoat. Because if the ship goes sour, they need to blame somebody, as in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They need to blame somebody. Because look, how many winning seasons have they had under that regime? They only had 1, and that was back in 2019 where they went almost all the way, which is one hell of a year, but that's only 1 sample size to pull from, 1 year sample size to pull from. So with that being said, I think Jimmy Garoppolo ultimately will be the starter, but they also need a scapegoat because if things go sour, then they can roll in Trey Lance. If you do it the other way around, where you roll in a week 1 starter who's converting from the FCS to not only the FBS level, but the NFL level, and the game speed of the NFL is so much different, although he can go through his progressions. We get it. He's very smart and savvy that way. But you're facing defensive coordinators who are very on, on a different level. They can do inverted coverage at the top of the defense. You can look off that single high safety, but that single high safety can roll up. The other one can roll back. There's a lot of different things you can do to disguise coverage and zone coverage and so forth, especially just talking about the 3rd level, not talking about the 2nd level. So with that being said, I think that the smart move and the smart play would be to sit Trey Lance, let him learn the NFL game at his own speed. So now you're not putting undue pressure onto this quarterback when really he is the future. If you do it the other way around and you roll Trey Lance week 1, now you're saying all eyes on me, and he's going to have those rookie mistakes. Now, how can he handle the pressure here in the Bay Area? Because Larry, here in the Bay Area, the gold standard is Super Bowl or bust. That's it. There is no room for error. Now, there may be some wiggle room as a rookie quarterback in the maturation process. We get that. But we've seen it before with Alex Smith. We've seen it before with Jim Druckenmiller. I mean, look at all the first-round draft picks that were drafted by the 49ers over the course of time. And you will notice that the common denominator here is, hey, I don't care if you're a first-round pick or a fourth-round pick. If they're a quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, the gold standard is Steve Young, Joe Montana. You can even say Jeff Garcia. So that's why I say I agree with you 110%. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starter. But if things go sour, I think that's when they roll in Trey Lance. And if they go 3-7, 4-8, 5-9, I think that's when you're going to see Trey Lance kind of sprinkled in, and then he'll be the starter in 2022. I think regardless of what happens, I know this is kind of crazy. This sounds nuts. Larry, tell me if this sounds crazy, because you made up a great point. If Jimmy Garoppolo takes his team to a deep playoff run, let's say a Super Bowl run, and next year Trey Lance has shown signs that he could be the week 1 starter, I think they're going to roll with Trey Lance over Jimmy Garoppolo and trade Jimmy Garoppolo, like you said, for a second-round pick. If Jimmy Garoppolo wins the Super Bowl or helps them win a Super Bowl, does that line of thinking change?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, first of all, I don't think necessarily that Shanahan and Lynch need someone to blame if things don't go well this year. I think Jed is firmly in their camp. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think everybody knows that if the Niners cut Shanahan tomorrow and fired him, there'd be 5 other coaches in the NFL that would be fired just by the chance that they could go get Shanahan. Lynch, on the other hand, it doesn't quite have the same market, but I think, look at their contract status, that neither of those guys is going anywhere. So I don't necessarily think that they need a scapegoat. I think Jed's firmly in their camp, and I don't think that's going to change. You bring up an interesting scenario, though. What if Jimmy leads them all the way to a Super Bowl? It really depends on what Lance looks like the rest of the year. Does he play at all? Does he look good in preseason? If I expect he's going to, because I really think highly of the kid. I think he works hard and he's got the physical ability and he's surrounded by a great cast and great coaches. If it doesn't work, I'd be kind of almost borderline shocked. But I just think that if he wins the Super Bowl, they're still going to trade him, in my opinion. Yeah. But they're going to trade him for more. Then the second round pick becomes a first and a second. Yeah. And the number of teams interested goes up from maybe 1 or 2 to maybe 6 or 7. So, but I do think they've committed to the future with Lance. I know there would be people who you're crazy. They win the Super Bowl with Jimmy. They're going to run it back with Jimmy. No, they're not. And no, they're not. It sounds good, but I don't believe it. I think that it will just mean that they get a higher price tag for Jimmy. But I still think at the end of the year, I think Jimmy's going to play this year. I think he's going to play well. Heck, they may win a Super Bowl. But ultimately, I think they move off of him next year. I really believe in it. Yeah,
I agree with you 110%. I think this is one more year for Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's it. It's kind of like Save the Last Dance with Phil Jackson. Hey, we don't care if you win a Super Bowl. We don't care if you win a championship. This is your last year. Best of luck to you in the future. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Keeping in the 2021 NFL draft class, everyone's talking about this. I've been asked this question. I thought I'd give this same question to you. When it's all said and done, who do you think will be the best quarterback to come out of this 2021 draft class?
I think it's going to be Trey Lance. And I know that people say, oh, you're a homer, you're whatever. I love Wilson, Zach Wilson, but there's some real magic there. But he's also going to New York City, horrendous roster. It's going to be adversity there. And he's also a smaller guy who just can't, who was operating behind maybe college football's best offensive line. So I think what his adjustment's going to be is, can he get used to throwing from a crowded pocket? If you watch almost all of his highlights, there's not this is a crowded pocket league. You have to make plays from the pocket with people around you. He's not used to that. So even though I like his talent and his moxie and his specialness probably the most, I think I would mark him down for the reasons I just described: the surrounding cast, the injury factor, the market. Trevor Lawrence is a tremendous talent. There's nothing really negative to say about Trevor Lawrence, but Jacksonville's not a winning franchise. I mean, and I don't believe they're going to surround him with enough talent. I think he'll take his lumps. Mac Jones, I think, is going to have every chance to succeed in New England, but his receivers might be the worst in pro football. At least they were last year. So I think that ship sailed. He's going to have huge things to overcome trying to take over for Brady, but I think he's going to play pretty well there. So who's left? Then you got Fields in Chicago. I mean, Chicago is not exactly a bastion of great quarterback play if you look at the last couple decades. So what do you have in Lance? You have the biggest, strongest, fastest quarterback who works incredibly hard, that played in a very complex pro system, that is now going to the best team with the best line, with a great running game, with an elite head coach, with a top 5 defense, with Trey Lance is set up to be that guy for sure. It may not happen, but I really think it will. I think they got this one right. I think they took the best talent and they're going to develop him the right way, and they're going to surround him with the best cast, and he's going to give them the best results. So if I got to wager one, it would definitely be on Lance.
That is some great insight from a scouting perspective. You see how he broke it down. You talk about checking the boxes. He just laid it out in layman terms, exactly what to look for from the quarterback position without having something in front of you reading off a paper. This is how good Larry Krueger is. I agree with you. I think Trey Lance has the highest upside of any quarterback in this draft class when it's all said and done, because of the position that he's in. Now, that can all change by tomorrow. We don't know if Kyle Shanahan's going to be there for the 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But if all things remain the same, Kyle Shanahan is arguably the best offensive coordinator in the NFL, hands down. And he will put Trey Lance in the best position for him to make plays. And I got to give it to Trey Lance. I think he's ultimately going to end up being the top quarterback when it's all said and done, because of the supporting cast around him, because, like you said, you need a strong defense. This is the ultimate team sport. You need a strong defense to get yourself back onto the football field. You need to win the time of possession by being a balanced offense. You need to really move the chains and keep, opposing offenses off the field and so forth. So with that being said, I think the formula for success for Trey Lance is, like you said, I'm going to piggyback on your analysis, is he's in the perfect scenario to shine. And in regards to those other quarterbacks mentioned, I agree with you 110%. I think Mac Jones is going to shine. I think he's the best quarterback in this draft class and going through his progressions and feeling the pressure, something that Jimmy Garoppolo is not good at doing. I think Mac Jones is good at doing. So I agree with you there. I think Zach Wilson has the best opportunity to be the best quarterback in this draft class when it's all said and done. No, that's not taking a shot at Trevor Lawrence. I just think Zach Wilson has better intangibles. But with that being said, again, the supporting cast, his offensive line is not very good. I mean, you roll with guys like Mekhi Becton, and I know you drafted Elijah Vera Tucker at number 14, trading with the Minnesota Vikings. But with that being said, you need more goons up front, and he's going to have some mishaps early on in his career. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We are sticking with the 2021 draft class because you are a scout at heart. All right, so we're going to go and talk about the 49ers 2021 NFL draft class. Larry, give it to me. How would you grade that draft class, and would you do anything differently from a scouting perspective?
I mean, I liked it a lot. I mean, I told you what I think of the quarter. I really like what they did on day 3 of the draft. Mm-hmm. Trey Sermon, I think, was a tremendous pick for sure. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. I guess if there would be one pick that I would have done something differently, when they went Aaron Banks in round 2. Now, Aaron Banks is built like a Coke machine, right? I mean, he's broad and huge and wide, and he's 6'6" and he's 330, and he may be a plug and play guard. We'll see. He played the left side at Notre Dame. He's going to switch to the right side with the Niners.
Yep.
We'll see if he can do it. If he's got the opportunity to step right in and be the starter. But I would have gone with his teammate, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I just think that Owusu-Koramoah, now he fell in the draft because of a heart condition, and he was still there. But, man, he was a first-round talent, and he was still on the board when they picked in round 2, and they passed him. I think Owusu-Koramoah is a Derek Brooks-type player. I mean,
Wow.
I think he's a Canton-type player. I mean, he's a linebacker, but he's also a safety. He's fast, delayed blitzes. I just think there's so many different ways you can use him. And now he's in Washington, I believe, right? So behind that unbelievable defensive line, and I think he's going to shine. So that would be the only difference. I was hoping for Owusu-Koramoah because I think he's the future at linebacker in the NFL, the 225-pound guy. But then the Niners alleviated that concern to me by the way they got Elijah Sullivan. Now, I know Niner fans say, who's Elijah Sullivan? Elijah Sullivan is a K-State linebacker who's damn good. And he's 215 to 220 pounds, and that's why he went undrafted. But the Niners, if all the undrafted free agents that they signed, I think they signed 3 or 4, they gave this guy $125,000 guaranteed. That tells me, it tells everybody else, but he's one of my favorite players in this draft. And I knew there was a chance he wouldn't get drafted. Instinctive, fast linebacker. Linebacker speed is where it's at right now. You don't have to be 250 and take on guards. You have to be able to backpedal and play in coverage because the game's now 70% sub package. So, in a 70% sub package league, a guy like Elijah Sullivan, I should say, is the guy. So Sullivan from K-State, I really loved as an undrafted free agent. Justin Hilliard from Ohio State, I loved as an undrafted. So I felt like they got linebacker depth with those 2 additions. And then I really love Jalen Moore, the MAC offensive lineman. He's not the greatest interview. I mean, I interviewed him on the night of the draft and on the Saturday of the draft, and it was a rough interview. But I don't care about that. This guy is an athlete. He's tough. He can play. They played him at left tackle against Florida State because they knew they had to have their best athlete there. Florida State had those great edge rushers, and so they put Jalen Moore at left tackle. So that tells you he's got great feet. I think he can play tackle. He can play guard. He can play right side. He can play left side. I love the Jalen Moore pick.
Jalen Moore. So is he your favorite draft pick the San Francisco 49ers made in 2021?
I would say yes, because I'm very confident that Jalen Moore. I mean, obviously Lance is the best.
Yeah. Right.
But Sermon. I mean, anybody who's watched college football at the end of the year saw what Sermon did. Sermon is a special guy for sure. And I'll say this: the back they got from Louisiana Tech is special. Elijah Mitchell ran in the 4.3s. He's 214 pounds. He can catch the football. He's good. So they're loaded at the backfield. But yeah, if you had to say, give me one guy who you're just absolutely sure is going to make the team and contribute and have an NFL career, I would say Jalen Moore. I love Jalen Moore. I think Jalen Moore's he's got the toughness, he's got the athleticism, he's got the versatility. I think Moore is going to be a terrific offensive lineman in the NFL for a decade.
Yeah, you make up great points. And yeah, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah went just a few picks. The Niners traded down with the Las Vegas Raiders. I really wanted them to get Asante Samuel Jr., a strong nickelback. And my grading system was the best nickelback in this entire draft class. I think he would be an instant plug and play, also providing instant relief in case K'Wan Williams bolts next year. K'Wan Williams hasn't been able to stay healthy. And you know what DeMeco Ryans is going to bring in this new defensive scheme that he's having. Now, it may be the same principles, and it may be the same cover 3 Seahawks scheme, but what I'm told is they're going to be using that slot nickelback position more as a run defender, just like they use K'Waun Williams, but more so look for a lot of blitz packages coming from Fred Warner now. I think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive than in years past. So that's why I thought Asante Samuel would have been a sound play. But Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, that is some strong words from you, in regards to saying that he is going to be a Derek Brooks type of a player, type of an impact. That is, I take that seriously.
Well, I mean,
what do you
when
see?
When Brooks came out of Florida State, he was 225 pounds in an era where the linebackers were 245, and people were like, "Oh, he's too small." And he went late first round. But if you watch the film, he was everywhere, and then he was great at the senior. I think he was the MVP of the Senior Bowl the year he came out. So he's just a very fast, instinctive player with a great motor, and I think Owusu-Koramoah is the same guy. That is awesome.
And again, this is why you're on the show. I like how you put these bold predictions out there, because that's the first that I've heard that I knew Jeremiah Wilson had a first round grade. That is something that I think many NFL analysts and insiders had the pulse on. But to call him the next Derek Brooks, and you being an NFL scout, you have an eye for talent, and you're saying this, watch him be the next Derek Brooks and be like, oh man, Larry Krueger called it out on June 29th on the BEASTwriter Family show. Because you know what? At the end of the day, that's what makes it so fun, is because we make these predictions. And yeah, we're not 110% right. But at the end of the day, if you're more right than wrong, you're pretty much in the clear, and you are more right than wrong. Derek Brooks comparison, I like it. And I like how you go back and talk about the height, weight, speed, because again, I remember having this conversation with Navarro Bowman, right off the record. And we were talking about it, and we were talking about weight. And he said, you know what, Ryan? He's like, how do you get so we're talking about our weightlifting and stuff like that. He wanted some tips. So we go back and forth, and we're sitting there in the locker room. He's like, you know what? He's like, nowadays I don't have to, he's like, what's your weight at? And I told him my weight. And he said, yeah, nowadays, I was like, what's your weight at? It's like, well, nowadays I don't have to be 250, 255. He said, now I want to be in that 235, 240 range, because we don't have to be that big anymore. Because again, more times than not, you have to be in pass coverage, right? Near that 3-down linebacker. If you're not able to be down on passing situations, you're more seen as a liability than an asset, because those days are gone. You have to be a 3-down linebacker. In order to do that, you're going to have to compromise your weight in some areas, because again, the NFL game is all about speed, and speed kills in the NFL. And again, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah definitely has that speed. So great analysis there. I like this about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I'm going to definitely save that clip and repost it and give you a shout out, because again, I really trust your analysis. And I think, let's say he's not the next Derek Brooks. Okay, cool story. But let's say he's a Pro Bowl player. And let's say Aaron Banks is not a Pro Bowl player. Then what?
Well, and you know, back to the linebackers for a second, that we've seen the evolution of this position. Borland, when Chris Borland played for the Niners, he was really, really good. He made lots of tackles. But if you go back to that first Seattle game, what did Seattle immediately do? They isolated him in pass coverage and basically forced him off the field. There's a ton of, look at Tampa this year. The speed that they had with Devin White, Levante David at linebacker. Speed, you need depth up front. But you need linebackers that can run. The 4-7 linebacker, bye-bye. He doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. You can't run 4-7 in the NFL and play linebacker, or you're going to get isolated in space against an athlete and burned. So you better be 4-5. And so, you know what? They would rather have Elijah Sullivan, 215 pounds to 220 pounds, JOK, 220-pound linebacker, and take their chance that they can stand up in the wash at the line of scrimmage, then take a chance that a non-athlete can stand up in space against an athlete.
Yeah. Talk about space. Okay, that's a scouting term we use and we throw around all the time. Usually that second level backer is playing the curl flat route or the curl hook route, depending on the coverage. Can you talk about what spacing means when it comes to the second level backer, especially the outside linebacker position?
Well, I mean, give you an example. The 49ers, you can list it whatever you want to. They have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. They're basically playing a 5-2.
Correct.
Okay, they're playing a 5-2, and they're letting Warner and Greenlaw be the 2. And before that, it was Willis and Bowman. And when you have when you have two linebackers on that second level, there's a lot of real estate. You got to be able to run. So you got to be able to defend the run right at you, but you got to be able to defend the run sideline to sideline. And ultimately, that's why speed is at such a premium. You're asking you're putting a premium on getting to the quarterback, but then you're asking your speedy linebackers to be instinctive and smart and make plays in the open field underneath. And a lot of the check downs are obviously underneath. So you got to be able to defend running backs. You got to be able to defend slot receivers. You got to be able to defend athletes who can make you miss in space. I mean, look at the Rams off season, by the way. I mean, look at the speed that they added. They added a ton of speed, and they're going to be a very difficult team to cover unless you have big time speed yourself at linebacker. So, what do the Niners have right now? Warner, Greenlaw, and Al-Shaair probably are the three fastest backers in a group in the league. And if they're not the fastest, they're among the fastest. And it's just very important that it just gives you more that you can do when you have speed at linebacker. If you have speed at linebacker, then you don't have to worry about getting a guy off the field in a third down play. You don't have to worry about having your first and second down linebacker on the field when they're going 5 wides on first down, because now you can, you're flexible. You've got you're set either way. So it's a speed game. It's always been a speed game. And now we're just seeing it really accentuated at its highest level, to the point where the thumper safety of yesteryear, he's gone. Joey Browner, David Fulcher, Steve Atwater, awesome players in their day, couldn't play safety in today's NFL. The new NFL safety is more like a Merton Hanks, a converted corner with length and instincts and athleticism, who can play man-to-man coverage, who can play a myriad of zones, who can be utilized in a number of different ways. So it's a speed game. And it's no accident that 2 years ago, when the Niners and Chiefs went to the Super Bowl, that they were the two fastest teams in the NFL. And when you're seeing in this last draft is that several fast prospects went much higher than they were anticipated to go, because teams are looking at the top teams in pro football. The Tampa this year, now you look at Brady, he was the face of the team, but they added a ton of speed on defense. So they had an incredibly fast defense. And they snuffed out Green Bay, who was on an offensive roll. So Chiefs speed, Niners speed, Buccaneers speed. These teams all were in the Super Bowl. Speed is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely great points. And again, Randy Mueller broke down the safety position. I talked about it. I said, no longer, like you just said, you just name dropped Steve Atwater. I said the same exact thing. I said, no longer can you have a Steve Atwater. He won't survive in the NFL because the rules are all dictated to the offense these days. You can't hit them high, you can't hit them low. But aside from that, you need to be able to cover it in space. And in today's world, no longer can you just have a traditional box safety as the extra run defender or the extra linebacker in run support. You have to be able to have that box safety to kind of mirror coverages on the back end and be able to cover. Because if you're not able to do that, again, it goes back to what you just said, is now the defensive coordinator is put in a bind, because if the offense goes no huddle, then do you have enough time to make those substitutions? No. So he's going to be on the field more than not. And that's why, again, and then you talk about the second level backer. You talk about the thumper position. You talk about guys like Denzel Perryman, who I absolutely love coming out of the U, but he's a 2-down thumper. He's not very good in pass coverage. And when you have guys like that, they're going to become obsolete. And that's why their valuation, when they hit the free agent market, is not very strong. So, that's why I think that those are very real reasons on why I think in today's NFL, you kind of have to evaluate your scouting process more toward, like you said, 70% of the snap counts, which are nickel and dime. All right.
One other thing. It's also, look at the Niners when they went to the Super Bowl against the Ravens. They had Whitner and Goldson.
They did.
Whitner and Goldson were thumpers who would separate you from the football. But now those hits are just penalties in the NFL.
Yeah.
So what you really need is an athlete who can break down in space. And bring somebody to the ground. It's not about the blow up hit and separating a receiver from the football, because that's a penalty. It's about being a very a surefire tackler who can tackle an elite athlete in open spaces when it's you and him and nothing but, 50 yards of green grass. You better bring that guy to the ground or it's a touchdown. So the game's changed quite a bit in a very short amount of time, by the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tommy Huxley, thank you so much for the super chat. If you guys want to support the work, support the channel, consider sending me a super chat. He says, Zach Wilson is a bust. I guess we agree or disagree. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think he's going to have a harder time early on because like what Larry just pointed out, the offensive line is not the best and his supporting cast isn't the best, but I think that ship's going to be riding in the right direction. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We have Larry Krueger of KNBR here with us on this Taco Tuesday. All right, here is a question for you, Larry, and this is only coming from you because you were a scout. So I want to know, and people want to know, for someone considering a career in scouting, what's the one thing you would advise them to do?
Play football, coach football, read about football.
Okay.
Definitely read Bill Walsh's book. Definitely read Tony Rosano's book. Tony Rosano wrote a terrific book. Take, a lot of the same, you're evaluating at the end of the day. Yeah. You evaluating football players. Yeah. But they're a football player for this amount of time of the day. They're a person for the rest of the day. So you better know people. You better be able to evaluate people. And so I would definitely read some books on human resources, because ultimately what it's about, it's about being able to evaluate people. Now it's a flawed business, right? Because you're talking about people evaluating people. That's always going to be a flawed process. You're never going to get it perfect, but you have to understand what you're really looking for is not, a glimpse or a glance. What you're looking for is the essence of a player. Okay. Yeah. What is the player's true essence? Because the essence of the player is what they're going to be when, the chips are down, when you're down in the fourth quarter, and also do they love the game? There's a lot of people that are good at the game, but you have to find out how much they love the game. Like for quarterbacks, one of the reasons I love Lance, and I said Lance is the guy, is because Lance is physically what you're looking for, but he, from the people that I've talked to that have gone into Fargo, who have actually been on the ground and boots on the ground and know him, he loves the process of football. The process of football is the lifting, the film, the field reps. You're seeing it right now this spring. Nobody's forcing him to be out there running patterns or throwing with Sanu and throwing with Debo and working out with Ayuk. Lance loves the process of football. If you have the talent and you love the process of football, you're going to succeed. So figuring out who's good at football is obviously what your job is, but figuring out who loves it and then figuring out what their essence as a player really is. So a lot of those things, and it's easier said than done. Everybody thinks they know it all because, I watched all the games. But I would say, if you can play. If you can coach. If you can study, human nature and human resources and have an idea of what makes people, what motivates people, what makes them tick. These are all vital components to evaluating players.
Right. Great point. And that's kind of like outside the box because not too many people want to delve into it. We talk about the Wonderlic test. We talk about these pre-draft visits. We talk about these private workouts. A lot of times it's not necessarily what they do on the field, but how they conduct themselves off the field. I'll give you an example. I have family members who are counselors at prestigious colleges, right? Sometimes the scouts will go to these prestigious colleges and they wouldn't even go there to talk to the players or the coaches. They would go straight to the counselors and be like, hey, this guy's had some problems, but we've seen that he's kind of cleaned up his act here. What's your take on that? See, things like that is where you're really going to gauge that, what you're talking about, what people do behind closed doors, how they interact themselves, how do they conduct themselves? Do they have a passion for the game? Because another story is I have friends who play in the NFL currently and former players who played. They don't love football. They don't have a passion for football, but they're really good at their job. And I mean, they're best at their positions. But I have to say, they don't care about football. They said, hey, Ryan, I'm just doing it for a paycheck. Like, but I'm not going to go out on record and say that, but that's just how it is. So that ick factor, that want to, that passion, that drive for the game, that's what you really want to find. And I think that's why you find these NFL teams that do historically well in finding these hidden gems, is because that's what they look for. They look for that character aspect of it. And if you have a passion for the game, you will take a risk on that kid in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. And that player may ultimately be better than that first round pick, because, you know, you can get by talent. But if you have that work ethic and that drive and that determination to push you forward, you're going to surpass that talent, because, again, at the end of the day, passion is always going to shine through. At the end of the day, it's always going to shine through. And we see it in years past, and we see it in the future. So I like your analysis on there on, you know, doing something, getting to know the person, going through HR, and kind of taking, I guess, outside the box kind of thinking.
One other thing is that, you know, it's a rough game played by rough guys. So you can't overreact to every misstep by somebody who's 18 years old. You just have to decide, is their essence, is it a young person making a mistake, or is this guy a criminal? You know, I mean, you have to figure that out, you know. But then there's also the football side, which is important. There's a thing called quabs, and it's quabs: quickness, agility, balance, and strength. So to me, you have to have that to play pro football. One of I think the best areas of where you can get value in pro football in the draft is guys who are short. And the reason for it is that the game is so incredibly athletic at this point that your incredible athlete may be 6'5", but he may be 5'11". Yeah. And if he's 5'11", I'd rather take the elite athlete who's 5'11", a la Dexter Coakley or Sam Mills or somebody like that, than take somebody who's got height, but it doesn't have the quickness, the agility, the balance, or the strength. So you want the quabs: quickness, agility, balance, and strength. But you also want the guy who, if you can combine that, like what Jerry Rice had all that, but he also had this incredible drive. And if you have the drive and you have the quickness, agility, balance, and strength, you know, you're talking about Canton. Yeah.
Great analysis, quabs. I like that acronym. Now I'm going to turn that into a clip and use it and give you reference. Larry Krueger, the quab analysis. Who taught you that? Is that something you learned on your own, or did you learn that from somebody?
That's actually, believe it or not, Tony Rosano, the longtime NFL scout who scouted for the Niners, identified Joe Montana. That in his book, he identifies quabs as one of the ways the 49ers back in the day used to separate, you know, good players from true athletes, is if they had the quickness, the agility, the balance, and the strength.
Interesting. See, you learned something new here in the BEASTwriter family. That's awesome. Okay, moving on. Let's stick with the 49ers. If the 49ers could wipe their hands clean of one player due to the salary cap, who would it be? Salary cap admitted, obviously.
D Ford.
D Ford. Okay.
No
Why?
doubt. No, I mean, D Ford is one of the biggest questions leading into this year. You know, the Chiefs got off of D Ford, got themselves a second-round pick, turned that money into Frank Clark. John Lynch got D Ford, and I like the pick on paper because D Ford is not just a pass rusher. He'll change possession on you because he's so elite at swiping down on the football and causing fumbles. He's almost perfected the strip sack if you look at the numbers. But you can't make the club in the tub, baby. You got to be out there, and he's not playing. Whether it's a back, a quad, a hammy, I don't know what it is, but he's not on the field, and he's making a ton of cash. And so far, that's been a horrendous decision to trade for him. So he still has that ability to be a difference maker. To me, you know, they're a very good football team, but they're an excellent football team if D Ford is the D Ford that they thought they were getting when they traded for him.
Yeah. When healthy, the guy is a monster. He definitely makes that defense a whole lot better just because of his initial get off. You don't have to train that kid to do what he does best, which is get after the quarterback. I'm going to have to say Eric Armstead. And I'm going to have to say Eric Armstead. And it's nothing personal, although things are personal. But no, 5-year, $85 million contract. You have to be the guy. You can't get it done without Nick Bosa playing there. Okay, he had one good year. 2019, he had a Pro Bowl type season. I will give it to him. Good job, Eric Armstead. But 2020 was the year where all eyes were on you, and you need a strong supporting cast for you to get pressure. Forget about sack numbers. I'm not really high on sack numbers. I'm more high on quarterback pressures resulting in the loss of down. I think he didn't do that enough. I mean, you look around the league, right? Covering all 32. Let's look at Grady Jarrett. Let's look at guys like Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons, respectfully. Look at Fletcher Cox from the Philadelphia Eagles. These guys are getting Pro Bowl type money, but are still getting it done with lack of a supporting cast. So my question is, did the 49ers overpay for Eric Armstead, knowing that that's the type of player they were getting? He's good. I call him Dana Stillfield 2.0. He's only good when you have someone there to take the pressure off of him.
Okay, we agree on a lot of things. We're gonna disagree on this one.
Okay.
The Niners view that, if you talk to Chris Kocherik, if you talk to the defensive staff,
correct,
they love Eric Armstead. Love him.
Okay.
Eric Armstead, Ryan, was a guy this year that simply was asked to do what he's not good at. He's not an edge rusher. He's an interior rusher. But because they lost all their edge rushers, they had no D Ford, they had no Bosa after week 2, he was forced to play outside. And he doesn't have enough speed to be an outside every down guy and to rush the quarterback. So if you put Bosa back on the field, D Ford back in the field, Arden Key, if they get a little bit more edge push, and you can use him in a rotation that was the design, was to use him as a rotation, as an interior rusher, and play him, on base downs outside, but in the nickel and dime, play him as an interior rusher. I think you're going to see those sack totals go up. He also is, the last 2 years, in my opinion, he has totally changed from. He has incredible functional strength. He can get penetration into the backfield on short yardage plays. So I like Eric Armstead. I just like him a whole lot more as an interior rusher, because that's what he is. He's a tackle who can rush the quarterback. He's not a defensive end. And if you make him play defensive end, he's just going to give you passable results. And that's what he gave him. He played. Was he horrendous? No. But for the money he was making, he wasn't worth it last year. He just gave them passable results. If you get your edge rushers back on the field, use them the way he was intended to be utilized, you're going to see him fire back a huge campaign. I'm a big Armstead guy. I know he sounds laid back, but he, and I know you and him have battled a little bit at times, but I just think he was a guy played out of position. And if you get him playing the right position, I think you really got something. But if you ask him to do what he did last year, which was line up outside and bend the edge, Kerry Hyder led them in sacks last year with 8.5.
Correct.
The next leading sack guy had 3.5.
Correct.
They had no pass rush. Once Bosa went out, that's when that season basically was done. And then Ronald Blair never got on the field. They had to trade for the kid from Cincinnati. They brought in Deion Jordan. They brought in Willis. I mean, they didn't have any edge rushers, and they asked Armstead to be the guy, and he said that's not his. He could have done that maybe coming out of Oregon, but he's not that guy right now. He is an interior. He's a smart interior rusher who, if you surrounded by better players, is going to fire.
Yes, surrounded by that's the key. I think surrounded by better players, he is going to shine. I just think when you get paid $85 million, you need to be that guy without a strong supporting cast around you. Let's face it, if you pay a guy $85 million to be the 3-tech defensive tackle, whatever the scheme that you were asked to do, or what technique you're playing on the interior, you have to double up as not only a strong pass rusher, but a strong run defender. I have my own grading system where I don't rely on PFF, and he has graded the worst run defender on the team for 2 consecutive years. Here's
the thing about that. Some guys spill the play. Some guys make the play. The stats don't show who spilled the play. He spills the play. He gets penetration and spills that play either inside or outside to his teammates. He's more effective than you would realize. The stats don't do him justice because there is no stat that shows he got out of his stance. He got up the field. He won in front of and he didn't make the tackle. All that really shows is, did he sack the quarterback or did he make the tackle? So the guy who causes the sack or spills the play to Fred Warner and he makes the play. All I'm saying is, if you talk to the linebackers, if you talk to the guys on his D line, I guarantee you, would hold him in much higher regard than you do.
That may be true. And again, I have my own grading system. And with the stat that you're talking about, I call a mob stat, making others better. So even though he doesn't make a play in the backfield, he will still get credit for making that play if he was making that impact on that initial stop. So
I'll tell you this. I actually like him as the nose guard in certain situations when they play. So because he's so strong and quick at the snap that he can get penetration up the field and kind of and be the nose of that defense. Even though he doesn't look physically like a nose guard, I think you could play him as a nose guard. But we'll agree to disagree on this one. I see what you're saying. I hear the argument, hey, he's making X, he should be producing X. But I think it's a little bit more complicated and a little bit more involved than that.
No, like I said, you don't have to have the sack numbers, or you just have to be able to make those impact plays. And again, not everything shows up in the box score or the stat sheet. Like I said, I don't care if he gets 10 sacks or 0 sacks. If he's creating pressure, making others better, that's a different story. However, he was playing out of position. I will give you that. I think he's more tailored to be kicked inside. He was playing out of position, but even then he's still on an island. And a lot of times action was ran his side and he was supposed to have outside containment. And you talk about the zone read options. We can go over how many times have you watched the zone read option? He gets wiped out clean off the scrape exchange or lack thereof. So there's a lot of different things that I see in Arik Armstead. Now that's not to say he's not going to have one hell of a year. Hey, Arik Armstead could lead the NFL in sacks this year. I went on record in saying that. I don't think he's horrible. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a good player. I just think that there should be more production if you're getting paid that much money. But we can agree to disagree. Larry, that's what makes this fun. That's what makes it fun.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about Najee Harris. This is my draft crush, bro. And you know this is my draft crush. Everyone here in the BEASTwriter family knows this is my draft crush. Do you think he's going to be a boom or bust prospect?
Oh, total boom. Love him. Absolutely love him.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, I saw Najee play against Northgate High School when he was like a sophomore. And the balance and the agility that he showed then was incredible. I mean, he was a man amongst boys. I saw him play out here in Concord against De La Salle. And it was like Najee student body right, Najee student body left. He'd run for 8, 9, 10, 11 yards. And he would just, he was just running basically 3/4 speed. Then he goes to Bama and he gets, they're so stacked that he basically didn't get as much playing time, but that was okay because it allowed him to grow up, see that, mature, physically mature, mentally mature. Now, full disclosure, his agent is a good buddy of mine, Doug Hendrickson, and we had Najee on the show. And Najee, I consider a friend. I have his cell phone in my phone, and I'm a big fan of the guy. But also, I just think that he's a better pro player than a college player. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can stone blitzers off the edge. He's got great strength. You can absolutely load up and starch him with a huge hit, and he's going to bounce right off. The downside is he runs a little upright, and he may take some big-time hits from some real physical defenders in the NFL, and there may be a durability concern. But when you factor in his ability, the effect, the infectious personality, the unbelievable power. The guy's got quads that are just ridiculous as far as, I think he's going to be a good short yardage back. And then also he can block and he can catch. I mean, I really like him. I realize there are maybe other backs who are a little shiftier, who run with better body lean. But I'm a big Najee fan. His heart is great. What he did on draft day, for the Richmond Boys Club, and basically saying, look, I was homeless and I'm going to honor these kids. I mean, that kind of stuff goes a great distance with me. But that aside, I think he's a terrific football player. I know the Niners talked to him a lot before the draft. I think they would have liked to have him. It just didn't work out. Yeah. It's one of those weird things that for like 2 months before the draft, everybody was like, he's going to Pittsburgh at 24. And then sure enough, he went to Pittsburgh at 24. So that was just too high for the 49ers this year to invest in a back, especially when Kyle's so great at identifying backs. I don't think he's got the pick and slide of a Sermon. Sermon's got a little bit more pick and slide, a little bit more ability that way, a little bit more naturally gifted on the pick and slide through traffic. But Najee is big and strong and fast and durable, and he's going to have a tremendous career with the Steelers. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's Canton, but I'm pretty sure he's going to have a great, great career.
I'm not sure if he's Canton either. But I will say this. I think the Steelers got to still at 24. And I say that only because I think that when it's all said and done after the end of the year, I think Najee Harris could, even though with that shaky offensive line, with Marquise Pouncey retiring, with Alejandro Villanueva no longer there, with Matt Filer no longer there, with guys like David DeCastro being released, 4/5 of your starting offensive line no longer there. I still think that Najee Harris is going to put up some serious numbers. And I say that because there's one guy that no one's talking about by the name of Kevin Dotson, a 4th-round pick. The Raging Cajun was playing spot duty last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers, playing at an all-pro grading system in my system. If they can get guys like that and find guys like that in the draft, I think sky's the limit for Najee Harris. And ultimately, like you said, he's not going to be out of the ball game on 3rd downs. He's going to be in because what does he do? He can catch the ball out of the backfield. That's something that you want to look for in a 3-down linebacker, 3-down running back. And he does all those different things. Now, if you were to put a stamp on it, would you say that Najee Harris in his rookie year would have more or less scrimmage yards than Trey Sermon when it's all said and done in 2021? That's a question that I have.
I would definitely say more. I would definitely say Najee's going to have more, just because, even though I love Sermon, there's Mostert, there's Jeff Wilson, there's JaMychal Hasty, there's Kittle, there's Debo, there's Ayuk. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. So, I think the Niners don't, if you look at their history under Shanahan, they don't put up huge usage marks on their running backs. They like the committee. So I definitely think that, Pittsburgh's had a great passing offense, and they've been looking for this piece for a while, and I think he'll succeed early, and then he'll get the lion's share of the attention. So I would say I would lean towards Najee there.
Yeah, I think Najee Harris is gonna. I know it sounds crazy. So that's your draft crush, I was like, dude, Najee Harris is gonna be an absolute monster. I'm telling people. Now watch him be an absolute bust. No, but I really think Najee Harris has something that a lot of people don't have. And again, it comes down to heart. It comes down to his humbleness. I think because when you're a young player or just a young person in general, and let's say kid coming out of college, let's say he gets a gig at ESPN, right? Let's just say, and now he's a big hot shot and he's like, yeah, I'm a hot shot. I have to do you know what I mean? Then it's almost like, whoa, okay, man, don't get on your high horse just yet. I'm already on ESPN. I made it. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, cool story, bro. And then he falls off. With Najee Harris, here's a guy who where he's trending. He gets it both on and off the football field, and it's his humbleness. And I think that just goes and speaks volume, like you said, to his attitude, to his personality. And I think that's what's going to be a huge driving force in his future success, both on and off the football field. All right, let's go ahead and finish it up. We had Larry Krueger on the show. Larry, we're going to finish this up with what I like to call the BEASTwriter 2-minute drill. It's a fun game of this or that. I'll ask you a question, and you will have to give me the first answer that comes to your mind. Are you ready to get going?
Let's do it.
All right. This is getting to know Larry Krueger and the BEASTwriter 2-minute drill. All right. We pull up the questions, and we're off and running. All right. Pizza or burgers?
I'd say pizza. Pizza.
Okay, what's
pizza,
your favorite?
But
pizza?
it has to be the right pizza, right? It has to be the right pizza. Pizza. Pizza over burgers.
Okay, what's your favorite pizza though?
I like sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms, onions, and green peppers.
Right up my alley. Right up my alley. Okay, do you have a favorite pizza parlor joint in the South Bay or not South Bay, but Bay Area, Walnut Creek area?
I mean, there's always. I'm not doing reads or live reads for anyone. I was doing them for Mountain Mike's, so I'll always be partial to Mountain Mike's. But I do. I like Zachary's. I like Zachary's, man. Zachary's, which is like kind of a, a lot of people don't like deep dish pizza, but my mother was from Chicago, and so she used to love Uno pizza, and Zachary's deep dish spinach and mushroom is absolutely incredible.
So you're a deep dish kind of a guy.
Well,
I'm more of a
I like them all, but I like deep dish too.
Okay. Fair enough. My favorite place is here in the South Bay. It's called High Five Pizza. I'm just an easy pepperoni type of a guy, but I like sausage. I'll eat all that combination too. High Five Pizza. It's another spot here in the Bay Area. You have to check it out.
I will.
All right. Lobster tail or crab?
Lobster tail. Oh my God. Lobster tail is absolutely, if you go to an elite place with a little drawn butter, and I mean, every bite is so dense. It's like, I mean, you want your protein intake, man, that's it right there. Lobster tail. You have a little lobster tail. Now I'm not talking about lobster roll. That's a big difference. That's lobster meat. I'm talking about lobster tail. Lobster tail is just so, if done right, is just absolutely incredible. Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm a lobster tail type of guy too. How can you go around with lobster tail? You can't. You just dip it in butter. That's all you need, and you're good to go. Don't need any seasoning on it. Just leave it alone. Lobster rolls are good too. There's a place called Slapfish. I don't know if you heard of it, but Slapfish here in the Bay Area, there's a place called Slapfish, and they're really good for their lobster rolls. This is not a sponsored post, by the way. It should be, because now people are going to look this up.
But I'll tell you,
all right,
go. My sister lives in Connecticut, and
okay,
if you ever get to Maine, in the summertime, sometimes they vacation up in Maine.
Yeah.
I mean, the lobster roll in Maine is incredible.
Connie said the same thing. She's like, the Maine lobster is just different. And I'm like, What do you mean? She's like, you have to go there. She's like, you have to check out the lobster in Maine. The Maine lobster is just, it hits different. And I was like, okay, now you said the same thing. See, this is what's cool about the BEASTwriter Family is I'm hearing different things. You guys may not even know each other. It's like coming to me. It's like, okay, God is talking to you, Ryan. Go to Maine and get that lobster tail. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We have another this or that question. Pancakes or waffles?
I would say waffles. Waffles. Because, I mean, waffles, if you want to get creative, you can get like bacon and put little bacon bits inside the waffle. You can put blueberries, raspberries, anything you want in there. So I would say you can do the same with pancakes, but I like waffles. I definitely like waffles.
Same here. I'm a waffle guy. All right, Netflix or Disney Plus?
I would say Netflix. Okay. I mean, sadly, my kids make fun of me because this summer I binge watched Cobra Kai because I like the Karate Kid, and I got into it after a couple. Now I'm waiting for the 4th season of Cobra Kai, so I'll go Netflix. I like Netflix.
Okay, I watched Cobra Kai too. There's a spinoff on Disney Plus, if you have Disney Plus, called The Game Changers. It's a spinoff on the Mighty Ducks. So you might have to watch that one.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to watch that one. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Yes, me too.
And it's like I've heard my father-in-law's big on the Android, and I've heard all the arguments and this and that. But ultimately, I've had program directors send us messages, and like some of the producers, I didn't get the message. Well, why? Because it was sent on an Apple and I'm on an Android. I don't want to take any chances. So Apple. Plus, I own the stock, so that's really why I'm Apple. I got some stock a few years back, and let's just say it was smart.
Yeah, me too. I got Apple and I held on to it, and we're looking pretty right now. AAPL all the way. For those who don't know, that's the ticker symbol. Okay.
Right.
This is where it's going to get a little bit tougher. All right. You ready, Larry?
Yep.
Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson?
Randy Moss.
Woo!
I don't
No
have to even
brainer.
think. No doubt. I mean, take away the meter maid, take away the jaking it with the Raiders, take away some of the crap that doesn't really impact anything. In fact, and all the it's Jerry, Randy, everybody else.
Okay.
That's my opinion, and I've seen them all. I love Randy Moss. 4.3 speed. I mean, there's one in the draft. I knew Randy Moss was Randy Moss.
Yeah.
The year, because he was in the Peyton Manning draft. Dallas had the 7th pick. They went with Greg Ellis because Jerry Jones said that Greg Ellis is the kind of guy you could have babysit your kids. Yeah, great. You go hire a babysitter, and I'll go get Randy Moss. So Randy Moss was an incredible player with hand-eye coordination, the speed. Randy Moss had greater talent than Jerry Rice. Jerry was better because Jerry worked at it, but Randy Moss's talent is the best wide receiver talent I've ever seen. Nothing against Megatron.
Right.
He's made some incredible plays 6'5". Still hard to believe the Raiders chose Jamarcus Russell over him, but Randy Moss.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. Randy Moss, it's hard to argue against Randy Moss. It just really is. And again, you bring up great points. I think at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, when he hung up his cleats, it was kind of like a no-brainer. I think Terrell Owens is obviously in the top 5 as well. All right. Tom Brady or Joe Montana?
Joe Montana. And I love Tom Brady. I interviewed Tom Brady on the field at Stanford when he was working out for the East-West Shrine game. And he came out here, and he was the same guy then as he is now. But, it's easy to point to numbers and this and that. But it's like, who's better between Kobe and Jordan? Well, Jordan. I mean, Jordan was the template that gave us Kobe. Montana was the template that gave us Brady and Rodgers. So I don't think Brady, if you got Brady alone and said, would you be Brady if you didn't get to see Joe? And I think he'd probably say no. And I think Rodgers benefited also from being able to see Joe. So just the fact that I'm calling Montana Joe. Now, granted, I was a 10-year-old kid in 1980. So in a lot of ways, Joe Montana is my first love. But there's something to be said for a perfect record in the Super Bowl. There's something to be said for, has Brady surpassed Montana as far as accomplishments? No doubt. He's longevity. Brady's accomplished more than Joe. But if you're just saying you got one game to win and you're down 6 and you're on your own 5-yard line and you can have any quarterback in the history of pro football to lead you down the field, I'm not taking Rodgers. I'm not taking Brady. I'm taking Joe Montana.
Yeah. That's actually a great way to look at it. I said Tom Brady, but
you're logical. You're looking at it as far as Brady's had a greater career than Montana's career, but Montana was the original.
Correct.
And Montana was all this talk about, well, what would Joe be without Walsh? No. Montana was doing it at Notre Dame. Montana was doing it at Ringo High School back in the day. And if you don't believe me, go look at the films. They're there, and you can see the same touch, the same fluidity, the same foot speed, the same balance, the same competitive fire. He had it all pre-Walsh. Right. So, Montana.
All right. Here's another tough one. Ray Lewis or Patrick Willis?
Patrick Willis, a far better human being. But Ray Lewis was a better football player, because Ray Lewis was an all-pro football player as an inside backer or as an outside backer. I still think he got lucky because Harbaugh called a timeout in the Super Bowl when he was gassed at the very end of his career. That was the stupidest timeout in the history of 49er football. Yeah. But I got to give Ray Lewis his. He was, he had the physical dominance at Miami, the speed, the strength, the pursuit ability, the skills, the balance, and he had the longevity. So tremendous. Both of them were tremendous football players, but I'll give it to Ray Lewis.
And Ray Lewis could have been a San Francisco 49er. That draft pick was traded to, I believe it was the Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens during that draft, if I'm not mistaken.
So wasn't that the J.J. Stokes draft? That was the year that the Niners traded up for J.J. Stokes, took J.J., and that pick that they traded to the Browns became Ray Lewis.
Yeah, I know. I thought J.J. Stokes was going to be a baller, bro. I thought J.J. Stokes was the answer.
I have a fraternity brother in college at Sac State, who every time we see him, we say, J.J. Stokes is going to the Pro Bowl, because that's all this guy said for like 5 years. J.J. Stokes is going to the Pro Bowl. So now every time we see him, his name's Joe, we just say, hey, what's up, man? J.J. Stokes is going to the Pro Bowl.
JJ Stokes, I don't know. What did you think of JJ Stokes coming out now that we're on that topic? I thought he was going to be me too.
I loved him, but I learned a valuable scouting lesson there, and that is that Pac-12 receivers generally are not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, for every Chad Johnson, there's a million JJ Stokes, Sean Dawkins, Dwayne Jarrett. You go right on down the list. There's everything. The Pac-12, everything favors the offense in the Pac-12. There's a saying, if you can play corner in the Pac-12, Diamador Lenore, you can play cornerback in the NFL, because there's good quarterbacks, there's good receivers, there's good offensive systems, there's officials that call a very tight game. So, everything favors the wide receiver in the Pac-12. So Pac-12 receivers overrated, Pac-12 D corners specifically underrated.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you 110% on that. All right, last but not least, scary movie or funny movie?
Funny movie. I don't really like scary movies, man. I mean, I liked Halloween back in the day, but I'm not, some of these scary movies people are, Conjuring or one of these, no. I will say this, though. If you've never seen The Shining, The Shining.
That looks scary, though, with Jack Nicholson. No, I've seen that. The commercial. No, I'm not going to. No, that looks scary.
Jack Nicholson, I should say. Incredibly scary. Red rum, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. I mean, that was a scary, scary movie, but no, I'm taking funny movie over scary movie every time.
All right, what's your favorite funny movie then? Or what are some of your favorite funny movies off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, I remember I loved Fletch, the original Fletch. I thought that was pretty funny. There's a movie. What's the movie with Ben Stiller where he gets married and then everything goes south on him? They go to Cabo and
they went on that trip, but it wasn't. But then she didn't have a job. The one that didn't have a job,
right, yeah.
Like it's my hobby.
She was an environmental researcher.
That was hilarious.
And then she had a deviated septum, and then she told him later she had a coke problem, and it's just that movie is so freaking funny. I laugh so hard at that all the time.
It was called The Wrong Something. It was like a person's name, right? It was the wrong person, and then he married. I forgot the name of the movie.
His old lady's banging somebody else on the honeymoon. I mean, the whole thing was hilarious, man. The movie was. It
was. No, that was one of my favorite movies too. Gosh, I'll let you know. I'll tweet it out to you. But anyways, this was a fun time. Thank you so much for hopping on the show, Larry Krueger. Everyone, if you want to follow Larry Krueger, it's Sports. Was it Sports Larry KNBR? Is that what it is?
Sports Larry KNBR on Twitter and on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. So just find me. I usually welcome everybody.
Or what I just say, just Google him. You can just Google Larry Krueger; things will pop up.
Yeah,
Larry,
be
thank you so
careful
much.
on that, by the way. Be careful on that.
All right, Larry, thank you so much for joining us and being part of the BEASTwriter family. We really appreciate it, and I can't thank you enough, my man. Mahalo.
Ryan, anytime, man. You need me, just shout.
You got it, man. All right, that was Larry Krueger from KNBR. That was an awesome interview. You guys learned a lot. You guys learned about quads. You guys learned a little bit about scouting, how to get into scouting. You guys learned about his rise in the NFL media. Talked about obviously what he sees in certain players. You talked about the 2021 NFL draft. We talked about a lot of different aspects. And again, this is what I try to do here in the BEASTwriter families, because I want to provide great insight in the guys and the guests and whoever hops on my show. It's the value that I want to bring to you guys, because again, I want you guys to really understand from a different perspective what it's like being in their shoes and how they got to where they're at today. Because a lot of you guys are asking me, hey, how did you do it? Well, here it is. This is living proof with these people. And again, we wouldn't be here without these guys in the BEASTwriter family. So good times. And thank you again, Larry Krueger, for hopping on the show. All right. 49ers Minded says, Larry Krueger, former NFL scout. Yep. 49ers Minded says, great show, BEASTwriter and Larry. Yes, it was a great show. And again, it was an awesome show, I would say. And it is now almost 12 p.m. So we went a little bit over here, but it's okay. I got to get my gym gains in, but I don't know if I'm going to do that, because we have Steve Weiss of NFL Network hopping on the live stream, which is our Pick Six segment. Usually it'll be around 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's what it's called, the BEASTwriter Family Pick Six segment. But Steve Weiss is going to be hopping on at 5:15 p.m. All I know says, great job, Ryan. Thank you so much. Jets Gang says, Are you going in to be a scout beast? Well, we don't know. Stay tuned. You never know. You never know. But again, thank you everyone for hopping in. I do want to touch base on this. Samson Ubicam, if you guys are just tuning in, he posted a workout video of him doing squats with bands hanging from it, and there was some kind of chatter and talk on whether or not that was good. What exactly are they trying to do there? And the explanations that were given when I was going off the Twitter timeline was absolutely false and not true. Anytime you want to use resistant bands, you really going to want to see obviously the resistance, but it has nothing to do with mind muscle connection. Mind muscle connection comes from the repetition of the rep, not necessarily the use of resistance bands. In fact, when you go ahead and perform what's called that compound movement, you really want to focus on the mind-muscle connection, if you want to use that term. And usually you'll get that if you're using bands at the top of the rep. You really want to load off the top of the rep. What you're seeing with the bands being used is whoever was training that person or training Samson to go ahead and do that, you're really taking the load management at the mid-level of that squat. So when you're trying to load manage into that squat, you're really going to load management means it takes the load off of it in the middle of that squat. Typically, you want to increase the load at the top of the squat to get that initial explosion. So I don't know exactly why it was made or why they were using resistant bands, but the reasoning given is not, in my opinion. And again, I spoke with a 49ers trainer who trains the 49ers and agreed with my assessment that it had nothing to do with mind muscle connection. It had nothing to do with any of that. And when it came to resistance bands, it was more of just load managing in the middle of your squat. So take that for what it's worth. I can go a little bit in detail on that. Alan Owen says, Rams going to regret letting Ebicam go, especially in the West. Fornas Minded says, George Kittle after minicamp said, Samson Ebicam is crazy strong. Yeah, Tommy Huxley said, Beast, I heard you were a Boy Scout. I was a Boy Scout. How did you know that? I really was a Boy Scout. That is true. Troop 611 and Troop 201. Holla at your boy. I do it all. 49er Minded said they have become strictly working with Kosterick and the D-line, and so far they love what they see. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Tommy Huxley. I am waiting for Tommy Huxley to hop on the live stream. He hasn't been here in a while. We need him to play some songs for us, because at the end of the day, Tommy, that's what you do. That's what you do, Tommy. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. if you guys have any questions at all, I'm just going to go ahead and put it up in the live stream, and you guys can go ahead and we can go ahead and talk football. Let me put this up there for you guys. But yeah, a lot of good things that were said today as it pertains to your San Francisco 49ers. And here we go. All right, so the live stream ticker is up. Go ahead and call in on that live stream. Actually, maybe I'll post it up on my, I don't know, what are you guys on, YouTube? Maybe I'll post it on YouTube so you guys know what's going on. And you guys can go ahead and all right. In other news, YouTube was sending me the channel membership tricks of the trade. They also told me to go ahead and do that. They're like, you know, you're getting a lot of super chats and super stickers. You guys got to ramp this up. So I got the notification today. I'm going to look into that, see what we can do for that. Oh, okay, here's some NFL news. The NFL cancels supplemental draft for second straight year. NFL Network, third time since inception in 1977 that it won't be held. So there won't be any supplemental draft for the second straight year this year. And this was brought to you, notified by ESPN. All right. So with that being said, let's see what we got here. Let me just read the article here for all of you guys. Alon Owen says, Tommy, no F-bombs in your breakfast. All right. Well, apparently it's not there anymore. I don't know what happened to that. Oh, here it is. NFL cancels supplemental draft again. All right. All right, guys. So that's going to be it for this live stream. Be sure, if you guys have yet to do so, to stay tuned for my man, Steve Weish of NFL Network on the Pick 6 segment. That will be at 5:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So just around 5 hours from now, I'll be hopping on another live stream with Steve Weish of NFL Network. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good day up until 5:15 p.m. because you're going to be back on the show. And if not, have a good rest of your day. Take care. BEASTwriter out.